So we're here on the top of Daf Men Beis Amid Beis Ihachi on the second line. The Gemara is now asking if you're going to tell me that when a man marries a pregnant woman or nursing woman, then what's going to happen? What might happen is that he will impregnate her, and that will endanger the life of the fetus because she will not be able to breastfeed. Ihachi, if that be the case, Nami. How could a man have a relationship with his pregnant wife? And the Gemara answers, the day he can supplement the diet of the fetus with eggs and milk to guarantee that the child will not die, even if, in the worst case scenario, his wife will not be able to nurse the baby. So the Gemara asks, we don't assume that when a man marries a pregnant woman, he wants to cause the death, the starvation of that fetus. He'll make sure that there's plenty of milk. And, today we have Materna, company name. Anyway, and we have Beitzim. We have plenty of things to strengthen the child and substitute for nursing. Again, there's nothing like mom's milk, but we'll manage them. The child will survive. And the Gemara says, Lo Yoav Le Baal, unbelievable. The Baal Hasheni, knowing full well that fetus is not his child, he's not going to go all the way out and spend who knows how much money on beitim and chalav in order to guarantee the vitality of the child. And he may be lax about it. Again, not that he wants to deliberately kill the child, he's not a murderer, but he's not going to put himself out that extra mile with the expenses, etc., of Beitz and V'chala. He's not going to buy it. So the Gemara says, why doesn't this woman demand from the Yarshim, the heirs of her late husband, who inherited the estate, that they should supply mazon, food for the Vlad, for the child? After all, a father is obligated to support and finance and sustain his child. Each a bocha level of bezdin. She may be too embarrassed to come to the courts to litigate, to sue the Yarshim of her late husband to pay for cholav and beitza, and as a result, Horega says, "No," which is very nice to her embarrassment and humiliation. She doesn't want to go to Bezdin, but as a result, the child might die. So therefore, we have to guarantee that a person does not marry a pregnant woman who's pregnant from another husband. Now, the Mishnah says that with regard to all the women that require hamtana, they have to wait in order to get remarried after the death of their husband. Achas psulos v'achas beulos, and the Gemara is going to be bothered by this. Why all this fancy language? It's achas psulos, achas beulos, achas nesuos, achas arusos, heininu psulos, heininu arusos. What does the Mishnah mean when it talks about a psula and an arusa? I mean, arusa by definition is a psula. So it doesn't mean that the Yevamot, that the Yevamot is a psula and she's an arusa. It's two separate categories, because if she's an asura, then she's not a psula. And if she's an arusa, we assume she's a psula. So why did the Mishnah have to double its language and talk about psulos and arusos? I mean, psulos and arusa are the same. And for that matter, beulos and nesuos are the same. Why the repetition of beulos and nesuos? Heinu beulos and heinu nesuos. So we have every reason to assume that in the case of a nesua, she's a beula. Amar Rabbi Yehuda achikama. Achas besulos v'achas beulos. And then that means that it's armul and it's garshu b'men eretz and b'men nesua. So whether or not it's a basula or a grusha or an almana min ha'eretzin or a beula of who's a grusha or an almonim and a suin, in all these cases, lo yisarsu. Lo yinasu ad shulem shlosha chadashim liachar misabal or liachar agirish. So we read it as a positive phrase. Now the Mishnah says that according to Rabbi Yehuda, Yisarsu, even though she was married, full-fledged marriage to Suin from a previous husband who died, she can have heirs because heirs does not entail any intimacy. And the only exception we said was Arusas Rabbi Yehuda, where they were miyached the chas v'kal before the chuf. Then the Mishnah quoted Rabbi Yossi, Kol Anoshim Yisarsu, but there's an avelus problem in the case of Almon. Rabbi Lazar all lebei midrasha. On one occasion, Rabbi Lazar was not able to come to Beis Medrash. The Ashkeche he found Rav Asi Amalei. So Rav Lazar, knowing full well that Rav Asi did participate that day. He approached me by Omer Rabbanan b'Beit Midrash. What new insights did I miss that they were machadish in the Beis Medrash? Amalei, Rav Asi responds to Rabbi Lazar, Hachi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, halacha Rabbi Yossi. We're going to paskin like Rabbi Yossi that a married woman who lost her husband is allowed to have heirs. And an arusa who lost her husband is allowed to have nesuin. Rabbi Lazar says, if Rabbi Yochanan had to paskin aloch Rabbi Yossi, Michlal, I derive from that the Yechida Polygale, that it wasn't that the Ribbana, the dissenting view was that of the Rabbana. It's then we apply the principle of halachic Rabbin. It must be that Rabbi Yochanan understood that the dissenting view that argued against Rabbi Yossi, the Machmir, was only a Das Yochid. It was only one Tana. So Rav Asi says, you're right, it's a Das Yochid. I'm going to bring a proof from a Brisa that the dissenting view that argues against Rabbi Yossi is only a Das Yechida. It's one single dissenting view. But Tanya, because we learned in the Brisa, Haresha Hoysa, now the Brisa is now going to give a long list of cases of a woman who lost her husband or was divorced from her husband and clearly was not pregnant. She was not in a, shall we say, an intimate relationship with her husband such that she could have become pregnant. The first case is Redufa Lelech Lebeis Avia. She's always traveling out to another city, back to her home, her father's home. So let's say before her husband ever died, it was months since she saw him last. She was in her hometown with her father for the last 6 months, to be dramatic about it. Oh, Shoyla the base spot. They were living under the same roof, husband and wife, but they were separated. You could have two people in the same house that are, for all intents and purposes, on two sides of the globe. Her husband is locked in jail. Imagine he's laid up in a hospital with his leg, in a cast up to the sky. He was too old to have children. He's got a certain disease and he cannot perform. Oh, now we go to the reverse. I say, she doesn't have tashmish because she's not well. Oh, pila achar misas paila. She had a miscarriage after the husband died. She's certainly not pregnant from her husband. A woman who doesn't have the uterus function to bear children. She's past menopause. Anna, she's too young. Oh, islandess who cannot give birth. Oshena Riyulele, a general statement about a woman who took some drug or something and she cannot bear children. In all these cases, we know for sure, for certain, she's not pregnant from her husband. And therefore, we would say that she doesn't have to wait 3 months after his death to get remarried. Yet, Rabbi Meir says, we're not going to say, let's be matir and each a chain or lele to get married immediately. If we do so, then somebody out there is going to assume that even a woman who's re'uya lele is allowed to get remarried. When I say get remarried, I mean immediately. Rabbi Yehuda matil le'ares v'li nosem miyad. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with the Tanakama in all the cases that were mentioned. And in all those cases, there's no gzera. Which means that if there's no problem on the horizon of lahavkin bein zera l'zera, there's no requirement for Avtana, and the same thing would apply to an Arusa. There's no need for Avtana because she didn't have a relationship with her husband. We know she's not pregnant. And who argues l'chumra against Rabbi Yehuda? It's Rabbi Meir. So there's no rabbim against Rabbi Yossi, and therefore against Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore we can pass like Rabbi Yossi. But Omer Rabbi Chia bar Abba Chazer bar Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan retracted his original position, and now at the end, Lamaskori says, "Ein halacha kimosa." Halacha is not like Rabbi Yossi. And the Gemara explains, Omer Rabbi Yosef, if in fact Rabbi Yochanan retracted his original position, he did so because of the brisa that was studied in Kerem B'Yavne, the Sanya Rabbi Yishmael ben Osha, Rabbi Yochanan broke Shamati mipi chachamim b'Kerem B'Yavne, kulam, all the women, those who might be pregnant, those who for sure are not pregnant, tzrichos lahamtin shlosha chadoshim. And in this brisa, it seems that we're quoting a transmission in the name of the Chachamim, and that's the Rabbin. And they disagree with Rabbi Yossi. They say that all the women, even those who are not pregnant for sure, still need Amtana of Gimel Chadashim. So if you ask me why Rabbi Yochanan was choser, and he came to the conclusion that Talach is not like Rabbi Yossi, and in Arusa Loti Nose, it's all because of this. So the words "mipi chacham" in this price indicate the rabbim shecholkim al Rabbi Yossi. Amalei Rabbi Yomi Rabbi Zrika ki ailis lekamid Rabbi Abba. When you'll be in the presence of Rabbi Abba, Ramile, ask him the following kasha against Rabbi Yochanan. And it seems Rabbi Yochanan himself contradicted himself. Miyom Rabbi Yochanan alach Rabbi Yossi. Ve'amar Rabbi Yochanan alach istam Mishnah. Utnan, and we have a stam Mishnah kol adnachim lo yinasu v'lo yisarsu ad shibayim shlosh chadot machas psulos achas bulos. So we have a Stam Mishnah against Rabbi Yossi. How could Rabbi Yochanan, who says Halacha Stam Mishnah, pass like Rabbi Yossi? Malay, so Rabbi Zerika responds, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Dirma loch ha lochash. He who asks such a kasha is not worried about something that he grinds, meaning that he takes out of his mouth, that he expresses. This is an idiomatic phrase for indicating that the kasha is not a kasha. Why? Because what we have here is not a stam mishnah, but a stam yachkach machlokasi. Because the mishnah, in its second stage, in the Sefer, quotes a machlokas between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda on this din. And whenever we have a stam mishnah there, and subsequently a machlokas, ain't halacha stam mishnah, and therefore he paskins halacha ke Rabbi Yossi and his mutter. Yom Rabbi Papa, Item Rabbi Yochanan, machlokas v'yachkach stam halacha stam, but stam v'yachkach machlokas ain't halacha stam. So our Mishnah is a case of a stam yakach machlokas. So we're not going to paskin halacha stam, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan paskin like Rabbi Yossi that it's mutter, not like the stam Mishnah. Now the Gemara tells us to mis tamich v'ozil Rabbi Avo. Rabbi Avo was walking, I guess, with a cane, or maybe not with a cane. He leaned akatve Rabbi Nachum Shamei. Rabbi Nachum is second in command, his helper, his servant, leaned on him. And that was a great opportunity as they walked for Rabbi Nachum to raise a number of questions. Man could be also hilchos amineh. He would collect different halachas that he heard, and then he wrote it up and published it. No, I'm just kidding. That halacha is like so-and-so. Boy mineh. So Rabbi Nachum asks his Rabbi Yevo, machlokas yakach stam, my omalei halacha stam. So far, so good. Stam v'achakach machlokas mai. What's the law in such a case? Omalei, Rabbi Yevo responds, "Ein halacha stam," because it's a stam v'achakach machlokas. Then he was asked, so again, if it's machlokes yakach stam, halachis stam. Stam yakach machlokes, amalei ein halachis stam. Stam de masnisin machlokes bebrayis. So you have a stam mishnah, and the machlokes was omitted by Rebbe in the Mishnayos, but it appears in the brisa. My amalei halachis stam. We're not going to pay attention to the brises, but machlokes v'masnisin ustama bebrayisa my. We started with the machlokes in the mishnah, then we see that there's a stama in the brisa. Amalei Rabbi Yavo responds, "V'chi Rebbe lo shana Rabbi Chia minayin." If Rebbe, who organized the Mishnayos, did not record that transmission of a Mishnah, which records a machlokas, but rather the Mishnah Gestam, but what's the case now? Machlokas bebrayis, sorry, machlokas masnisin. So Rebbe records a controversy in a Mishnah, and the brisa was stomach. That's the brisa of Reb Chia. Reb Chia was a Talmud of Rebbe, excuse me. So minaylo. How does he know what the halacha is? So he can make a stomach of the brisa. I mean, Rebbe didn't make it into a stomach. So therefore, Rabbi Chia doesn't have a right to go beyond Rebbe. Such a case, we're going to apply the principle of halacha kestam mishnah. I'm sorry. In this case, We're going to leave it as an unanswered question, as a machlokas. Lo yitachin sheish machlokas b'mishnah u'bevaisa histuma lachriya locha kistam. So again, this is going to end this last section of the Gemara of all the questions that Rabbi Nachum asked Rabbi Ava. Have a great day and a good night.